pehle people would come to a psychiatrist and they would say that we are sad, we feel depressed. But nowadays I'm seeing a lot of people coming, they tell us that I feel numb, or I feel nothing, or I feel a flatline kind of a feeling.
A lot of times artists say that they cannot create art if they are not high.
So definitely when you take an external substance, it can take you to a place that actually maybe in reality does not exist. Of course, there is a very fine line between using it and abusing it. That line is very fine, that it is often blurred.
Hello everyone, welcome back to What's the Point? And today we are sitting in conversation with Dr. Anjalika Atrey. She's a psychiatrist and also a de-addiction specialist. And the topic we are actually going to cover with her also revolves a lot around addiction and substance abuse mostly. I'm looking at you all. Yes, we all have at some point in our life used any kind of substance. And I think this is a conversation we all really need to hear and be a part of.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, Dr. Anjalika, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And I would like to begin by asking you to, if you could just really break down for us what is something that qualifies as a substance and what is a use, abuse, and, the difference between use, abuse, addiction of a substance.
Okay, so basically when you say what is a substance, so substance can be any chemical that can sort of alter the neurochemistry of your brain in a good way or in a bad way, in a therapeutic way also and in a non-therapeutic way also.
Right.
But of course there is a very fine line between using it and abusing it, right? That line is very fine, that it is often blurred. Usually किसी एक इंसान ने अगर एक बार एक substance use करा है, right? That doesn't qualify as addiction. Right. So not every person who has smoked a cigarette once, we would call him, her or them as an addict, right? So एक casual use या फिर एक recreational purpose के लिए एक बार use किया, that is not something that qualifies as addiction. Because जब आप उसको एक social setting में use करते हैं to socialize or to for recreational purposes and बहुत occasionally use करते हैं, that is when you have the power of choice with you, right? And just to the very fact that you have that power of choice. Addiction is when you lose that power of choice, right? So on the contrary, there is a person who is using alcohol, let's say every day, itna zyada quantity pee rahe hain ki they can't really sleep without it, and in the morning they face withdrawal symptoms and dependence pattern ho gaya hai, and they don't understand the kind of damage that they are doing to themselves, to their physical body and mental and emotional well-being. So that is something where you lose the choice, the power of choice, right? Here I don't have choice that I can cut down on my alcohol, because if I do, I'll have all possible withdrawal symptoms. So that is actually the line where we need to say that this is addiction and this is just substance usage. Yes.
So abuse happens when I think we cross that little line.
Yes.
So what changes do you see in the youth using substances in the recent years? Because I think it has become very common these days. Earlier, if you see, substance abuse was something very I don't know, it was less, I don't know, you
so
wouldn't
it's not
just
like that, it was
see it happening, or
exactly, you wouldn't see it happening. So if you don't see it happening, does not mean that it has not been happening, right? So we need to understand that there has been the use of substance ever since the humanity got into the picture. Over time, of course, the usage of substances differ. The way people use it also differs, right? And it's not just the substance. People nowadays also get into more of behavioral addictions. It's not only the chemical that people get addicted to. For example, जैसे आपने बोला, what change have you seen in youth? It's also the phone or the screen addiction, right? It could be a pornography addiction. It could be shopping addiction. Right? It could be gaming addiction. It could be gambling addiction. So there are different kinds of addictions over time that we have seen has changed. But again, I would not say that पहले substance use नहीं था या कम था और अभी ज़्यादा है. It has just been changed over time, and also because there is more awareness to it and it has become little more normalized on the social media. So that is why it looks like it has sort of increased, but in reality it has always been there.
Also with social media and so much screen presence, do you think it's more than normalized, it's also glamorized to a certain extent.
Yes, I think the main character in the movie, you know, you'll see them
Yeah.
smoking throughout the movie, and then there'll be a tagline disclaimer
Yeah.
at the end, धूम्रपान शरीर के लिए हानिकारक है. So things like that, obviously, because when you see that this person is the hero or heroine of the movie, right, you sort of somewhere at times might relate with the person, but you also see that how you know, nicely they have portrayed that this person is smoking throughout and looks very glamorous and very charming on screen and all, right. So काफी ज़्यादा glamorize कर दिया है. Because of that, again, दोनों चीज़ें हैं. If you make it a taboo, then most people will not come and tell you that I smoke or I drink or whatever I do. And if you glamorize it, तो उस चीज़ का सीरियसनेस खत्म हो जाता है. सो बोथ एक्सट्रीम्स पे अगर बहुत ज़्यादा टैबू क्रिएट कर दें या बहुत ज़्यादा स्टिग्मेटाइज कर दें या बहुत ही ज़्यादा डिस्टिग्मेटाइज कर दें, सो मच सो दैट इट बिकम्स टू नॉर्मल, दैट एक्चुअली इट फील्स वेरी ग्लैमरस एंड चार्मिंग टू होल्ड अ सिगरेट और वट एवर और टू कीप ड्रिंकिंग थ्रू आउट. So both extremes, both spectrums will be problematic actually.
Yeah. So then it comes to how people always say that, yeah, fine, it is okay. We all, or a large number of people do at some point use some kind of substance, be it anything, be it a liquid, if they are smoking, or if they are, I don't know if there are any other ways.
Liquid, solid, gas,
crystals,
there are everything. Yes.
All the other ways.
Yeah.
At some point, whenever a person is using, it's also, like you mentioned, it's also for recreational purposes.
Yeah.
So, do you think these are just excuses to use a substance, or is it actually something that a person needs to for a recreational purpose?
See, we need to understand. Problem is when somebody says that, see, pehle people would come to a psychiatrist and they would say that we are sad or we feel anxious or we feel depressed or we can't sleep or we feel tensed. But nowadays I'm seeing a lot of people coming, I'm sure a lot of psychiatrists would also see it that way, that people come and they tell us that I feel numb or I feel nothing or I feel a flat line kind of a feeling. You know, there's no excitement that I feel, there is no sadness that I feel, there is no happiness that I feel, right? So they are, आजकल microdosing का concept ज़्यादा है, right?
Okay. Yeah.
When you say recreational purposes या social setting में किसी ने alcohol drink कर लिया, right? So they are, you know, drinking it in an amount that can sort of make them feel a little euphoric for some time. They can enjoy the company of their friends and like that.
Right.
But constantly on a daily basis, small doses, micro doses में अगर आप कोई भी substance use करें to sort of self medicate yourself.
Yeah.
For example, अगर कोई मुझे आके बोलता है if I don't vape, if I don't smoke, vaping again बहुत glamorous लगता है. You have a vape, right? So it's easy to use it wherever you are, है ना? Cigarette के लिए एटलीस्ट कहीं पे जाना पड़ेगा, you have to light it up. Yes. Again, so microdosing is this thing कि आपने somebody comes and tells me कि मेरा concentration बहुत अच्छा नहीं है, so I smoke a cigarette or I take a little bit of drag and everything, तो 40 minutes के लिए I feel pretty much concentrated and focused on whatever I do. And then वापस से एक घंटे बाद मेरा concentration ख़राब होता है या मैं थोड़ा less upbeat feel करता हूँ, then I'll probably smoke up again. Not smoke up, like let's say smoke a cigarette again or something like that, right? So you're trying to microdose yourself, है ना? Microdose yourself with a certain substance to feel good, to feel sort of better or to be functional or to be productive. Yeah, for example, people would come and say that, you know, I feel very anxious and I have terrible insomnia and I can't really sleep at night, and because of my stress and tension I don't even eat, my appetite has gone for a toss. And then they would come and tell that, you know, I smoke up weed and I light up a joint in the night so that I sleep better, मुझे भूख लगती है and I eat well and I feel a little relaxed and everything. So problem is, that is not a problem. Problem is when you come and tell a doctor that I can't function without it, right? So if I don't smoke up a joint, I will not be able to sleep, for example. If I don't drink a glass of wine, I'll not be able to sleep, right? If I don't take a cup of coffee and 2 cigarettes, I'll not be able to relieve myself of my pressure in the morning, let's say, right? A lot of people say that मैं coffee नहीं पीऊँगा तो मुझे constipation हो जाता है ना? Cigarette नहीं पीऊँगा तो पेट साफ नहीं होता है. So these are sleep, appetite, your bowel habits, these are your daily routine biological cycles, right? So ये सारी चीज़ें जब impact होने लगती हैं, then you come and tell a doctor कि ये substance के बिना मैं ये particular चीज़ नहीं कर पाता हूँ या कर पाती हूँ. That is when you have to understand वो थोड़ा थोड़ा dependence develop हो रहा है.
Correct. A lot of times artists say that they cannot create art if they are not high. So is that something that really connects to a person's, I don't know, psyche, or is that just a, I don't know,
Definitely,
myth?
when you take an external substance,
Yeah.
it can take you to places. It can take you to bad places. It can take you to good places. It can take you to a place that actually maybe in reality does not exist.
Yeah.
And as an artist, probably people relate to that, something that does not exist. And when they, channelize it in the form of an art,
Yeah.
a music, a screen, writing concept or something, an idea, right, that probably might be a little sort of productive for them, because it's something that is coming from out of the world experience.
Right.
And that is something that is new for the audience, for
Right.
their audience, let's say. So it can sometimes so happen, but again, repetitive usage and more frequent usage, and usage in the quantity that your brain and body cannot tolerate, and increasing amounts to feel the same high, and all of those
Right.
things are the indicators that substance use is becoming problematic.
Right.
And you're becoming dependent on the substance. Now let's say the same artist comes and tells you that if I don't smoke weed, I cannot make art.
Yeah.
That might be problem.
So when your functioning starts depending so much, anything, be it your art, be it your own body,
Yeah.
starts not functioning without a particular,
the particular substance.
then
Yes.
watch out for the signs, guys. And so right now in our country, substances like weed, marijuana, these are illegal around here, but there are also countries who have legalized these kind of substances. So how
But
does
now in India, we do have sort of medical usage
Huh.
of CBD. I mean, solution,
Right.
oral solution.
But
So
then
we
it
can't say
must
that
be
it's
prescribed.
completely
Yeah.
illegal. Yes, but there are certain medical indications to that.
Right, so you cannot like take it just
Just to
With
feel high, nobody
high.
will not anyway feel high with that.
but then there are countries, there are places who have like fully legalized the
Yeah.
selling or any trade of
Yeah, of course.
such substances. Is that something that causes more, I don't know, abuse of the substance, or does making it illegal really going to work for our country or any of the countries?
Making it legal and illegal is, I think, solely a discretion of the government. But
Yeah.
anyway, see, if you make alcohol legal,
Yeah.
that does not mean alcohol is doing any good to people, right? I
Yeah.
mean, people who have major alcohol use disorders, they have problems. They have develop liver cirrhosis. They have ruined their family dynamics
Yeah.
also, and there have been problems with smoking as well. It's not
Yeah.
just weed which is a problem, and
Right.
making it legal or illegal will change the entire setting. We know tobacco, cigarette, and chewing tobacco is so common in
Right.
India, right? We know things are cancerous also.
Right.
So many people have developed cancers, all sorts of cancers, right? So it's
Correct.
not just making a certain substance legal or illegal. Suddenly you'll come and tell me कि cocaine legal करते हैं, weed illegal करते हैं, या weed legal करते हैं, cocaine illegal करते हैं. That is not something that is going to change. I think people will still procure it the way they have been doing it in the past. They will
Right.
keep doing it the way they are doing. They'll be doing it anyway.
Right.
So that controlled usage, once, like I said, once in a while in a social setting, when they are drinking alcohol and smoking a cigarette, that doesn't become majorly problematic.
Right. And as a psychiatrist yourself, who must deal with a lot of people who come with these kind of problems, what is it that you see more? That is substance abuse happening more just out of this glamorization of it, or is it actually related to some mental health? Because yes, obviously I think substance abuse does take people to, in some way, mental health issues, or mental health issues will take a person.
It's very
to,
bi-directional in nature, actually. There might be an underlying condition, underlying anxiety, underlying
Right.
insomnia, underlying depression, right? To sort of self-heal or self-soothe or self-medicate themselves, a person might actually end up getting their hands on a substance, right? And initially it might have a little bit of calming action or a relaxing action. But in a few vulnerable people, again, like alcohol, people usually start off, or cigarette also, nobody starts with 20 cigarettes a day, right? People often start with 1 cigarette a day, that also once a week kind of a thing, right? So gradually it becomes, it goes to a level where it becomes problematic, and suddenly you will not even realize that it's 10 to 12 cigarettes a day, right? So there might be, sometimes it often starts as, because it's too normal also. It's again, the same thing. It's not about what is legal and illegal. You can still go and take a cigarette and light it up, right? So that is there. And again, in the short while, it will have some short-term gratification. You might feel relaxed. You might feel, tension-free and everything. But in the long run, of course, alcohol has its own complications. Cigarettes will have its own complications. In fact, with cannabis also, with weed also, in the short term, it can, of course, have those relaxing actions. It will put you to sleep. It can sort of regulate your mood and everything. But people who are vulnerable, right, if there is a genetic history, family history of, let's say, psychosis or schizophrenia, so you can be, let's say, more prone to developing psychosis in the later onset, in the later run, basically.
Mental health also plays a huge role in a person's use of substance then.
Yeah, that definitely does.
So is it always the case that a person who's, I don't know, maybe mentally struggling in some way or the other will always turn to substance, or
it's not like that.
Or a person who is...
It's not always like that.
Oh, okay. And what about if a person has used or become so used to a substance, will they develop any kind of mental health issues? Because now they are becoming dependent on it.
So let's take this example this way. Alcohol usually people take to feel relaxed, right? To just enjoy the vibe of the place, to feel a little sort of, their guards are down, they feel free, they feel less tensed and everything, right? Less anxious. So in the short term, like I said again, it can help the person soothe the anxiety to relieve them of their stress, make them feel more free, like a floaty feeling and everything. But again, in the long run, if there is continuous usage, if the quantity is increased, right, and if there's a daily consumption or things like that, in fact people end up drinking it in the morning also, in the afternoon also, in the night also. Right, that is when initially you have taken it to relieve your stress and anxiety, but eventually when dependence develops, when tolerance develops, you have to take more and more amount to feel the same level of relaxation or same level of high. Right, after a certain point it is going to cause more anxiety because there will be withdrawal symptoms and anxiety, restlessness, palpitation, sleep disturbance. These are the most common withdrawal symptoms that you will face with the alcohol. Right, so in the long run it can actually exacerbate your anxiety.
And have you ever seen any cases wherein people have, started using a substance just out of some peer pressure or just some glamorization that they saw? Because I know I had a friend who had started smoking just because he saw in some movie that the lead actor was smoking, and it just looked too, I don't know, there was this whole power dynamic involved, and this person just thought that, that's something I'd want to do, and that's how this person just got into smoking.
So peer pressure definitely is one thing. Like you said, people can start a substance, and also one of the things that stops a person from stopping a substance, and also one thing which can motivate you from stopping from using a substance. It works both ways, right? For example, if your friend is there and he tells you, and you are having a problematic alcohol use, and the friend comes and tells you, ठीक है, एक ले ले, या एक cigarette ले ले, या एक पैग ले ले, कुछ नहीं होता, New Year है, ले ले, and everything, birthday है, आज तो ले ले, right? So it becomes probably a little difficult for you to leave it. But let's say at the same time you have a peer who tells you, अभी ज़्यादा हो रहा है, मत ले, right? अभी तेरा problem हो गया, liver खराब हो गया है, ठीक है, मर जाएगा तू, right? So it works both ways. It can help you also, and it can sort of enable your substance seeking behavior also.
What are certain misconceptions that you have seen around substance abuse, substance use in people? Misconceptions, be it regarding addiction or just general use as well.
So, very common misconception is that one substance is better and the other substance is not, right? For example, अगर हम cigarette नहीं पियेंगे तो चलो हम vape कर लेते हैं, vape तो safe होता है, right? Again, that is a misconception. Or something similar to this, like ठीक है, alcohol से तो side effects होता है, alcohol बेकार है, alcohol ये होता है, let me just smoke up weed, या फिर weed से ये सब चीज़ें होती है, alcohol पी लेते हैं, things like that. So, if one substance is doing some harm to them, so let me just take another substance. That is a kind of common misconception that people have.
And when it comes to addiction, any misconceptions around addiction?
This is related to addiction only.
No, just like...
addiction, of course, a denial, right? You will, denial is the biggest problem, right? You talk to a person who smokes
Right.
10 cigarettes a day. For the initial 2-3 months, they will not realize it. Even if their family tells them, friends tell them, right? You're using more cigarettes and all. They'll be like, नहीं मैं तो सिर्फ 2-3 ही करता हूँ, 4-5 ही करता हूँ. They will not accept more than that. They don't even realize it. The usage has become, maybe to 10 cigarettes a day or something like that.
And what are like the most common ways that you must have come around that people just give to justify their substance use? Apart from just peer pressure.
Apart from peer pressure, I think most common is work pressure. People say that काम पे बहुत स्ट्रेस हो गया था, ज़्यादा काम था, डेडलाइंस था, टारगेट्स मीट नहीं हो रहा था, फ्रेंड ने बोला चलते हैं, या फिर घर पे बहुत स्ट्रेस है, बच्चों के पढ़ाई का प्रेशर है, वाइफ का प्रेशर है, राइट, थिंग्स लाइक दैट. सो वर्क एंड familial, personal stressors.
And if people, so the thing is that this is something very common that we see. Like offices have like dedicated smoking zones, dedicated smoking breaks, just to manage कि हाँ ठीक है आप जाओ एक cigarette मार के आओ, so you'll be good at your work again. So do you think this is also something? This is in a way just promoting substance use instead of trying to tackle it in any way or in different ways.
This is about the offices and all. I don't think I would be able to comment on this. I think
it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you had to give an advice or give a way to people who are resorting to go, substance use instead of any other ways, so what would be certain ways that people can actually go to cope their stress or whatever pressure they have apart from substance?
So with substance, what happens is that it gives you immediate relief from whatever underlying discomfort or unpleasant feeling that you have. So for example, if you're feeling stressed because your boss shouted at you, right? So you might probably think that, let me just smoke a cigarette to feel good, right? Or let me just have a 90 ml so that I'll feel relaxed, I'll sleep off, right? So the idea is that the brain doesn't want to, let's say, feel that unpleasantness or feel that discomfort that caused with the situation that happened, right? So ideally, brain has to learn to self-soothe itself, right? It has to process what happened. It has to process it in the right way, make peace with it, right? And then move past it. Right. This is the ideal way. But of course, this is not going to be the easy way. And this is going to be a little long term, right? So brain always will want to have a shortcut. Right. So I want to feel, why should I go through this unpleasantness and not being able to sleep and maybe overthinking and all of those things? So let me just have something so that I bypass this whole route and I don't feel all of those bad spectrum of emotions, right? So it's a brain's defense mechanism to escape from the reality, right? Because you will just not feel those spectrum of bad emotions for some time, but nowhere it's helping you because it's still there, and that kind of situation might come again in your life again, right? So you will at one point in time have to face that. So we should rely more on adaptive coping mechanisms. For example, instead of if you don't want to feel what you're feeling, so instead of wanting to have a substance, you can probably go for a jogging, go for a walk, listen to some music, or maybe talk to some friend, or write some journal, diary entry or something like that, and you can do anything. You can do breathing, relaxation, exercise, yoga, so many things we can do. We can meditate. We can just process it in exactly the way it should be, rather than sort of wanting to escape from it, right?
So it comes more from a place of wanting to escape.
Escapism and feeling more good immediately, rather than processing it, feeling bad and then feeling good.
So I think then it really becomes a lot about how we internalize things, because if it is something how we perceive things, right? I think that would be the right word. How I will, if there's certain work pressure that I'm dealing with, if I choose to not let it affect me so much, I will just numb myself. But then I won't have to
compartments in our lives, right? We need to compartmentalize. Work pressure will always be there. I'm not saying we need to normalize the work pressure and everything, but some companies will give you more pressure, some will give you less pressure. There will always be some pressure, right? So that we need to have that buffer, that there are activities, there are people, there are things, there are times where I do things when I do not think about that thing. So that compartmentalization has to be there. I mean, it's a very smart technique where you do not think and you engage yourself in activities, people, task, and conversation, which really give you, those meaningful things, right? Rather than just ruminating about what happened at 8 a.m. in the morning and at 10 or maybe 2 a.m. in the night also, if I'm thinking about that, I'm not able to compartmentalize. So I'll be more worried about it.
Now, if a person has understood these things, or these are difficult things, I get it. It's not just flip
You
off.
just can't
Like
on a
it's
button
not
and
a switch.
understand it.
Okay, fine, I'll not think about this. I'll not go to a substance. But when it comes to a place where, okay, a person has tried this, maybe not work because obviously it's difficult, and then they still went to the substance, and now it has turned into addiction. So what are how can a person themselves identify if, self-identification if they have to do, how can one just self-reflect a little key, okay, this might be turning into an addiction, and what would be further steps for a person to take once they've identified it?
So to identify it is very important to acknowledge what is happening, right? So if I'm constantly in a state of denial that I am not going through stress, right, and I'm not probably drinking alcohol to relieve myself of stress, right? So if I'm constantly in denial, I'll never be able to understand the ground reality. So first the denial has to go down. More acceptance towards your own self, right? We can lie from the whole world, but we cannot lie from ourselves, right? So it's very important to understand and reflect what is my current state of mind, current state of emotional well-being. If I'm a little disturbed, so let's just understand why I'm disturbed, right? What techniques I'm using to cope myself of this emotional turmoil that I have. Am I resorting to only substance? Am I discussing it with my family or my friends or my seniors or my colleagues, whatever, right? If still I am using substance as the only means to cope with this current reality, right, then probably let's understand how much I'm resorting to the substance, how often, how frequent I'm delving into it, right? What quantities I'm consuming, what it makes me feel, and when I'm off the influence of substance, how does it make me feel, right? And still everything, if you're not able to figure out everything, of course you can always seek help from a mental health professional.
Right. And is there a way for people, if they want to not go to a mental health professional, is it as easy for a person to just give up on their addiction or start working on their addiction without any professional help?
So professional help is always secondary, right? First is always the person itself, himself, themselves, herself, right? You have to first decide and choose that you have to acknowledge that there probably is a problem and I need to sort of get off this problem, right? So first everything starts within yourself. Mental health professional कुछ नहीं कर सकता अगर मुझे नहीं सिगरेट छोड़ना है या मुझको कुछ नहीं करना है तो आप कुछ नहीं करवा सकते हो, right? So first I need to acknowledge, I need to identify that there is a problem, I need to accept that there is a problem. When I accept, then only I'll be able to make those changes, right? Then I can have a healthy lifestyle, I can go for gymming, I can go for swimming, I can go for a walk, I can get into meditative practices, I can do yoga, I can travel more often, I can spend time with my family, I can cook, whatever I need to do, right? I can have those adaptive and healthy coping strategies, right? So that is first thing. Like I said, we need to identify that there is an issue that needs to be addressed. Addressing it is, it's the first thing that needs to be done. Then despite of doing all of those things, and we have to understand it cannot just be reversed in a single day, right? We need to give ourselves that time. That okay, if this person has some issue, some addiction, some dependence for a substance, then it is not going to go away in a single day. And it is fine if it is going down gradually. We focus on something called as harm reduction, right? So first of all, you reduce the amount of substance, you make it less frequent, the quantity is reduced, right? The time gap between the substance is increased. So all of those things, you're reducing the amount of, effectively reducing the amount of substance that you take. So it has to be very gradual, right? Despite of doing all of these efforts, when you see that it's not really helping me, that's when you actually go to a psychiatrist or a mental health professional.
And how much of a role does a person's family or people around them play in their de-addiction journey?
Definitely, 100%, right? It's very important.
So what are the things that people, as if I'm a friend, I'm someone's family who is, really working on de-addiction, what are the steps the person's family or the people around them need to take, or things they should keep in mind?
Very important question that you have asked, that it is very important for the family to not be critical. Right. So I understand that the family wants to support. The family wants everything in the best interest of this person, right? But at times families end up being too critical, right? तू ही problem है, तू ही दारू पीता है, तू ही गाली देता है, you only come home and do all of those, you know, and you only are the problem and it's just you, and you know, you shift and throw the entire blame on the person. The person feels very helpless.
Right.
The person is already dealing with the problem. You start blaming the person. You accuse the person of 1,000 things, right? So they start feeling helpless, right? They start feeling that I'm being cornered, right?
Yeah.
What do you think will happen? Mostly they will end up having more of it, right? So we have to be understanding as family members. They have to be very understanding of the fact that this person is going through some problem, right? This person understands or not understands is a secondary thing, but they have to also go a little, you know, low on their criticism towards this person. That, and they also have to be equally patient with the process. Patience is the key here. And again, आज छोड़ दो, एक दिन में छोड़ दो, एक हफ्ते में छोड़ दो, those kind of unrealistic expectations from the family members towards this person, that creates that undue pressure on the person, right? It's not that the person doesn't want to leave, right?
Correct.
So, but that undue pressure gives them more pressure, makes them more stressed, makes them having the substance more.
Right.
So more modulated or a regulated emotions from the family and more understanding environment from the family, that is something that's going to help.
Right. And I think families and friends around people also need to understand that journey is not easy. It's going to be messy.
It is
a
going to be
person might
journey,
relapse. And that
there
is
might be few slips, and that's
Right.
okay. That does not mean that person doesn't want to.
Correct.
A person who drinks alcohol every day, he went clean for 10 days and you know 11th day, let's say he had it, suddenly all the friends and family come and blame the person. ये तो कभी छोड़ ही नहीं सकता है, once an addict, always an addict, and all of those things, right? That's not how this works.
Right.
Slips are okay. I mean, it's normal. We have to normalize. He has been or she has been or they have been trying to do that. Once in a while, if they slip, it's fine. The idea is they have to bounce back again.
And while we speak of addictions, you also mentioned there are a lot of other addictions that we are, you know, moving towards, not just substance. So if you could speak a little bit about other addictions, like our phone addictions, people are addicted to their screens all the time. Those things, if you could talk about a little.
So of course, I mean, like you said, it's shifting. There is a huge transition from substance to behavioral addictions. So there are addiction towards the screen. You'll see a lot of time people would just probably open the phone without a purpose, right? Do you think that happens with you? You would unlock your phone without knowing what I need to do, and then suddenly you'll probably find yourself, you know, hooked to it for another 45 minutes, right? And same with gaming and using all those apps for shopping, and you know, even gambling addiction works like that. Screen addictions and everything. So not just, again, it works in the same way, gives you that short-term and instant gratification, gives you that micro dopaminergic hits. You feel good for a certain period of time, and then you want to keep feeling that. Again, a little bit of escape from the reality, and affects your humanly connections. You know, you prefer to be hooked to your phone all the time, and people get so comfortable, you know, on chats and all that. They, you know, I just read this few studies where they would cut your call and they would just text, message you back, and you know, it develops a lot of social anxiety. So many people have come and told us that we've become so socially anxious. When we go in a room full of people, it becomes very difficult to face them because we have been so comfortable on a chat or on a WhatsApp and things like that.
When it comes to substance abuse, I think there are very physical signs. It's very evident. You can easily identify. What are things that one should look out for in these kind of addictions then?
Let's say a person is using, for example, let's talk about phone addiction, right? Like a person is using phone, and phone or screen or a particular app becomes the only means of, you know, feeling good. For example, that becomes the only means to stay connected to people. For example, if your internet goes off or you're traveling somewhere and you're not having signal, right? During that time, people experience that feeling of FOMO, right? I'm not connected to the people. I don't know what is going on in other people's lives, right? Those things. And then comes the state of comparison, because in pictures and all, you can just post the entire rosy and beautiful pictures of your whatever is happening in your life. Right? So you, as a person, might start comparing yourself that everybody else is better than me, and you know, I am probably not good enough, things like that, and the person might start staying withdrawn, right? They would not want to interact with people, and like I said, when they interact with people, they feel anxious, they feel a little awkward, right? They lose interest in other activities which were previously pleasurable. I don't want to now go out and play badminton, I don't want to go to swimming, right? I don't want to go to tuition, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to go to college, things like that, right? And it becomes increasingly difficult for them to empathize with other people, you know, when one-on-one connect is there, things like that.
Have you ever come across any unusual kind of an addiction which maybe we would not see in our very regular day-to-day lives? Like, yes, screens is something which is very common. Substance is very common.
I wouldn't say unusual, but like this is how the person came to me, that I am addicted to the idea of giving me more pain, because that is something that gives me the kind of high people usually get with other substances. So I sell, let's say the person told me that, you know, doctor, I self-inflict injuries on me, not like a typical self-harm that I feel bad and I went into an argument, that's when I slashed my wrist, something like that. No, but the idea was when there is some kind of pain, any physical pain basically, that's when I really feel, you know, like relieved and like a high kind of a feeling that I get. So so again, not unusual. There is you can always relate it back to the past journey, the traumatic events, and that's how it led to a certain psychopathology. But like, that was like it.
So do you think any kind of trauma or any kind of pain that has been inflicted in our lives at any point can at some point in our life turn into some kind of an addiction?
Any kind of trauma can not any kind of trauma that to maybe relieve you from the after effect of trauma, or let's say if you have PTSD, you constantly get nightmares and you constantly get flashbacks of that, you know, some traumatic event that happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Let's say you want to not relive that experiences, that is when probably a person can get their hands on a substance, things like that. Let's say because of any traumatic event you started feeling very depressed, right? So maybe to feel better you can and you're constantly overthinking and you're constantly preoccupied about that thing, so maybe you don't want to think about it because it's unpleasant to think about it. So that's why you probably want to have a certain substance. For example, you want to smoke up a weed for that, right? So not directly, but like the ill effects or the after effects of a traumatic event.
Okay. And it may or may not turn into an addiction. Okay, makes sense. I think you did say that when people start depending on a substance, and I think it also becomes functional addiction, and that is something which is a little normalized.
So what happens in the people who are extremely functional and they will not have addiction, it's not like that, right? Usually it is identified at a very later stage, because from the outside everything looks very wonderful, they are highly functional, and you know, the person doesn't look like there is an issue, right? But deep down there are people who are struggling with addiction, and just because they are being functional, they show up to work and they are high achievers, high performers and everything, it does not mean that they don't go through the problems with addiction. So again, like stimulants category of drugs, for example cocaine and other drugs like that. So you know, a lot of people do it and they go to work and they become super functional at work, right? So there might be an underlying depression, there might be an underlying problem that they are trying to mask with the substance. There might be, right? So like I said, so you when you see the person, right, you might not feel that there is a problem or there is an addiction, right? But there might be.
I think as people around us also, or even if we know that this person will need this particular substance to function, to do something, and we are like, listen, just go take your cigarette and then come work, I don't know. I think people with tobacco have that a lot. I knew someone who used to chew tobacco, and then if they haven't, they cannot
then they
work.
Can process. The thought process becomes very aligned.
Once they've had it, it's just like, now I'll just get things done like this, this. I see that a lot with, you know, I think
nicotine, cigarette and tobacco.
Right.
Really, yes.
Cigarette and tobacco. I think the first time I came across something like this was when we had some carpentry work going on at our house, and all the workers are like, थोड़ा सा खा के आ जाते हैं 5 मिनट, आधे घंटे में सारा काम हो जाएगा देखो. So
Yes.
I think, but that is still something which is so. And after a point, even my father was like, "Yeah, please go do your thing, and then get this done quickly." So it's something
It's
that is
sort of
very
normalized,
right?
yes.
Very normalized. I think we don't even realize these
Yes.
things might be
Problem.
a
Signs of
problem.
dependence on a
Right.
substance.
If you have to identify or like differentiate, what kind of percentage do you see in substance abuse in like youth? Is it like largely just the youth doing it, or there are different age groups?
No,
when
no,
it
I'm
comes to-
definitely people across all age groups have
Yeah.
their own
Yeah.
substances, like choose your poison kind of a situation, right? As a shift, we can
Yeah.
definitely see that initially it used to be more of, let's say, alcohol, and
Yeah.
youngsters, let's say, are using more of cannabis.
Right.
But having said that, this does not mean that youth are the ones using more substance and all. No, it's
Right.
not like that. People across all age groups, their choice of substance, the formulation of substance, right, the mode of delivery of a substance might be different, but across all age groups, all generations, there has always been substance use.
And do you think there's any kind of a substance which has been highly, I think, misjudged or misperceived among youth or anyone?
Misjudged, misperceived, I don't know, but controversial probably is ganja, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah. So, yeah, right. People make it to be such a huge deal. Like every time, if you ganja fukra, because I think it came from the movies and everything. Ki, haan, charas ganja ka dhanda hai, charas ganja. It was like there was too much fuss around it. And when you see it being so normalized these days, do you think that is why also it creates ye drug addict
So
ये तो गांजा पीता है drug addict होगा.
normalization, extreme normalization is a problem for any drug,
Yeah.
whether it's weed or whether it's alcohol, right?
Right.
What happens is that, like I said, if you make it a taboo or a stigma, right,
Right.
nobody will come and seek help, right? Because any which way is going to a psychiatrist is a major taboo, right? It takes a lot of effort on a person's end to actually come and seek help from a psychiatrist, whether for psychiatric issues or for addiction issues, right? So a lot of people will hide and they will just suffer and they will not come up and seek help. That is there. And if you make it too normalized also, then the warning signs that are there for any substance dependence, people will not take the warning sign seriously because it's now too normalized in my head, right? So it doesn't look like a problem anymore. So again, I mean, like I always say that things into extremes are always problematic. So we have to operate within, the most regulated window.
Right. When you said misunderstood, ganja is very misunderstood and people
Misinformation, rather.
Misinformation. So people have there is also, I don't know, people say that it's not as addictive as tobacco, as cigarettes. Is that really true?
Nicotine again is highly addictive. We know for a fact. With cannabis, what happens is that since when you take it initially, it gives you that relaxing and soothing, and it regulates your mood, your sleep, your appetite, and everything. But again, in the long run, it has been seen that it blunts out your motivation. So a lot of people complain with something called as amotivation syndrome, that in the long run, they feel in general disinterested in things, that everything seems very sort of, I am not really interested in going to work, not interested in doing this or meeting friends. In general, the state of drive and motivation goes down. That is one thing. And in a few, it's not something that directly leads to a certain mental illness, but in the long run, it just exposes your vulnerability basically. So in a few vulnerable minds, it can cause, let's say if there is a genetic history, like I said, of any, or a family history of, let's say, schizophrenia or psychosis or something like that. So it can sort of make you more vulnerable or more predisposed to having psychosis in the later onset. So that, yes, is a misconception that people mostly have around cannabis.
Yeah. So I don't think we can speak about addiction and not speak about people being very dependent on caffeine. And it's
chai and coffee, right?
Yeah, chai, coffee,
Caffeine,
matcha these days. I don't know.
Caffeine definitely is one of the most
Yeah.
commonly used over-the-counter substance, right?
Yeah, I think
So,
that will also come under a substance, right?
yes, it is a substance. Caffeine dependence is very common.
Yeah.
Caffeine withdrawal usually mimics depressive states. And a lot of people, right, they obviously, like cigarettes, you will start with 1 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And I need 1 cup of coffee to wake up and to feel
Correct.
fresh and to feel energetic. And then I can run through the
Yeah.
day and everything. Then from one, it probably, a lot of people, it becomes 2 and then they need 3 and things like that. When it comes to a certain level, that's when you start having the withdrawal. So without coffee or after a certain duration of not having coffee, right, a few hours later, you'll feel low on energy, your mood doesn't feel that great, you don't feel that upbeat,
Yeah.
right? Things like that happen even with coffee also, I mean caffeine also.
Right. And how does one deal with that then? Asking for a friend, guys.
That friend, is that you? No,
I
just
think
kidding.
it's not like 3-4 cups a day, but yeah, I do need the coffee to wake up.
As long as you are able to stick
Yeah.
to a routine and you do not, there is no tolerance to it. Tolerance
Right.
is the phenomenon that you need increasing amounts of any substance to feel the same effect of it.
Right.
Right. If the tolerance is not developing, then it's okay. You can take a few breaks in between, like drug holidays or caffeine
Right.
breaks, whatever in between, right? So let's say you're not functional on, let's say you're not working on Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday, go completely off caffeine, right? The degree, I mean, the speed at which you drink coffee also is important, because if you consume a substance, any substance, not just coffee, right? If you consume a substance and it suddenly increases dopamine in your brain, right? So that effect is something that creates more euphoria.
Yeah.
Right, and if you drink it slowly or if you use a certain substance slowly, it will increase the dopamine, but there'll be a gradual increase in dopamine rather than a spike in the dopamine.
Correct.
So that also is something. So you can drink it slowly, you can drink it in a diluted fashion, right? And you, like I said, you can take 2 days off in a week where you don't drink coffee. So that's how you can sort of maintain it.
Okay. And I think another form of addiction, or I don't know if we can call it addiction, is also the reels and everything that we watch today, our content consumption, and it has affected our brains on a, I think,
major level.
good amount of because I think people's span of attention have reduced, because we are
definitely.
so used to reels, we are so used to the TikToks, which are like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds, and now we cannot take in all the
beyond that.
long format content.
So every content that you see will develop every 6 months, will be shorter in duration.
Right.
It will be much more faster, and it will be much more brighter and louder.
Right.
Again, tolerance, right? Now I need a faster content, now I need a louder and a brighter content, now I need a shorter content to stay more focused or to give the same high, right? So it's the same phenomenon of tolerance that develops there as well. So it has majorly impacted the attention span of people. People have become much more inattentive. Their registration and recall of the memory, right? Those two faculties of memory, that they have gone pretty down. In general, you feel less focused. It creates a state of mindlessness. That is why we call it mindless, scrolling and doom scrolling, right? Because you're not being mindful. It's not that you're watching just the content of the reel, right? When one reel stops, you want to scroll next. So you don't even realize that you probably wanted it for 15 minutes and you end up spending 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You wanted to sleep by 12 and it's 3 a.m. Maybe you're tired in the morning. You don't want to wake up to work and everything. So it is also giving you the same dopaminergic spikes. It keeps you micro dopaminergic spikes rather. So it keeps you sort of occupied and engaged. Again, an escape from reality or the thoughts, right? So
that too
works
will
in
come
the
under
similar
the
fashion.
bracket of addiction then.
Addiction, no, but definitely it can turn into addiction, right?
Okay. So when you mentioned these dopamine spikes and the colors and the lights, everything, it reminds me of this study that I had read of or come across somewhere, where Coco Melon as a show for kids is not very good, is something I had read, because it uses all these I think all these factors, like very loud, very colorful, very fast movements, and I think it was a reel only where this parent was comparing their child's behavior to when they watch Coco Melon and to when they are watching like maybe some older cartoon this person had put up, which were more quiet, which were more not
Long
things
format.
are long format,
Slower.
slower, you know, more mellow colors, mellow music. And is that also something
So I'm
that
not aware
will-
of the show that you're telling me because
Yeah.
I'm aware of the name, but I've not watched it. But I mean, the concept that you're saying definitely is similar to what I just explained,
Correct.
right? Because if
Right.
something is slow and boring now, because I'm used to a certain speed, I'm used to a certain smaller content, shorter, immediate gratification.
Right.
So something which is more routine, which is more monotonous, might feel
Right.
boring, and I probably don't want to do it anymore. So I mean,
if us as adults are getting so impacted by these 15-second reels, and if that is happening to a child
yeah.
who's like so small, cannot speak yet. So Coco Melon, I think, is a show, even I don't know fully what the show is about or if it's just a channel, but they have these songs and these small
Okay.
poems and everything, but just animated things, but very loud. There's a lot of
So probably they've made it
sound
more
effects,
engaging.
a lot
that
of
way.
sound
Okay.
effects, a lot of colors, and too many characters on the screen or something. And then if we are doing this to children, like from that particular age, and I think their attention span and what you are saying, the information retention
Yeah.
will be affected at such a small age itself then.
So again, I'm not aware of the show though.
Yeah.
But if we are not engaging in mindfulness activities,
Right.
then definitely our attention. Because what is mindfulness? That I am present here, 100% here and now, right? It's a
Right.
concept of here and now. That if I'm talking to you, I'm present here
Correct.
now in the moment. It's not that my mind is drifted somewhere else,
Correct.
right? That creates a state of mindfulness, and if you're being more mindful, so it does not mean that I don't have the ability to multitask or shift my attention from
Right.
one task to the other. No, it does not mean that. So but it means that when I'm doing something, I am 100% focused into doing that, and I am not thinking about 10,000 other things, right? And then once that is done, and then I'm able to shift and switch to something else which also needs equal attention in the similar timeline.
Correct. And one more addiction I would like to bring up, might not be an addiction, I don't know, but there's just term that floats around is shopping addiction.
Shopping addiction again, more of a stress release. It's not just an addiction again, it's a form of sort of feeling better, again giving you immediate gratification. We can also call it in a way that some people shop, some people order food, right? Those food cravings will happen, right? You want to stress eating, emotional eating, and emotional shopping rather than addiction. I would like to call it emotional shopping. You're not shopping because you need a certain thing or a certain outfit. You are shopping because you want to feel good, right? You are, let's say 2 a.m. in the night, you're ordering something. It's not because you feel hungry. Maybe you feel bored, you don't have anything to do, or let's say you're not going through a good day and you're feeling sad and a little low, right? Maybe you order something sweet, and again it gives you dopaminergic spike. You feel good. So not eating because you feel hungry, you're eating because you want to feel good.
Correct. So that's exactly how it goes for shopping. Yeah. And if you could just very quickly, like you've used the word dopamine kick and everything a lot of times, to give a little bit of context to our audience also, if you could quickly brief us what exactly happens in our brains, in our minds, or whatever the right term is.
A lot of things happens in our brains and
is
minds.
getting used to something, or
see, ideally what happens is that dopamine is one of the neurochemical, right? That keeps you motivated and driven, and it gives you, let's say, the sense of purpose to chase something, right? And now, of course, if I have a purpose, I will have to work towards it, right? There'll be some short-term goals that I will have to reach a certain long-term goal, right? So, it's like a marathon, right? And if I have to complete the marathon, I have to cross a few kilometers, let's say, right? So, again, it is a very long-term thing. Let's say I have a 1-year plan in my mind, okay? Now, I don't want to wait for 1 year to feel good. So if I have a 1-year plan in my mind, so after those things are done, I'll feel very accomplished that, okay, fine, I've had a certain goal in my life, I completed it after 365 days. So I'll have to wait for the entire period of 365 days and I'll have to work, right? And all those 364 days, probably I'll not feel good because it's not being accomplished until then, right? So it's a long-term gratification, let's say, right? But I don't want to not feel good for those 364 days also.
Yeah.
So what do? So I do something which makes me makes me have more dopamine. For example, I
Yeah.
eat sweets, or I eat junk, or I shop more, or I use a substance, or whatever. I watch reels, I watch content, right? Things like
Right.
that. So वो तो long term में dopamine spike करेगा, more meaningful dopamine
Yeah.
spike करेगा, right? In the short term, what is happening? Because I'm feeling bored, because my goal will be reached only after 1 year, 2 years, or whatever, right? Until that time, I will resort to, let's say, watching reels for 2-3
Right.
hours to feel good. So वो थोड़े level पे, micro level पे dopaminergic
Yeah.
spikes करेगा. You're microdosing yourself with dopamine, right? Or I will, like I said, indulge in things that might give me dopaminergic spikes or things like
Right.
that. So that is the whole idea of dopamine.
Okay. And if a person has become an addict or is addicted to something, has went through their journey of de-addiction, is it really possible for a person to be fully free of that addiction? Or
Yeah,
like you
I
said,
mean,
once an addict, always an addict.
I
Is
didn't
it
say once
something-
an addict,
No,
always an
like we had
addict.
mentioned the
Yeah, people
how
say
people
once
say
an
it,
addict,
how
always
people
an
say
addict,
it.
yes.
Once an addict, always an addict. Is it something that will actually go away at a particular point if
And
a person is too deep into it?
totally
Even.
depends on the person, right?
Mm.
See, for example, a person comes to us and they tell the doctor that, I no more consume alcohol to feel high. I consume alcohol because if I don't consume alcohol, my hands start shivering,
Right.
my heartbeats increase, I feel sweaty, I lose
Right, right.
balance, I feel anxious, and so on and so forth, right? So let's say you mitigate all their withdrawal symptoms. Then
Right.
the person tells me, abhi to withdrawal symptoms nahi aata hai, now it's just the craving.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, you mitigate their craving also, you give them anti-craving agents. Now the
Yeah.
craving is also gone, right? Now let's say it's been a couple of months now and the person is off alcohol, right? Now it is also the choice, it's the peer pressure, right?
Correct.
It is also the social setting. Some
Right.
people will come and tell me, doctor, my work is like that I need to sit with my clients and drink alcohol, otherwise I'll not be able to crack deals, right?
Yeah.
Things. So that profession also sometimes come into the picture. It's also the peer pressure, like all my friends drink, if I don't drink they sort of outcast me, they they see me as an uncool person or whatever, right? That also comes into the picture, and it's
Yeah.
also the choice at the end of the day, right?
Right.
And it's also the family support. Again, if the family, so a lot of issues are happening, the family adds up to more stress of the person, right? So apart from the person's choice, there are other factors also,
Right.
which can lead to him or her or them consuming a
Correct.
substance or not consuming a substance. And like I always say, even if person happens to consume after being being in a period of being sober for a couple
Right.
of months, so it's okay. It does not mean that they'll continue to do it forever.
Right.
Right, it's okay if slip happens, it's fine, but all we need to do is that we need to make sure that it doesn't happen again, or
Right.
it happens less frequently.
I think that really sums things up for us. If you had to, on a final note, if you had to leave anyone with any advice who consumes any substance, any other phone reels, any other thing that they could be hooked to, addicted to, what would be something you'd like to leave?
So I would just say
message.
that it's less important what you're consuming, a content or a substance. It's more important why you are consuming it, right?
Right.
So identify the why within you. When you identify the why within you, that's when you'll be able to understand that what is that inner voice or the inner
Right.
dialogue that you're trying to silence with whatever you're consuming.
Right. I think that's a wonderful note to leave this on. Thank you very much, Dr. Anjalika. This
Thank you
was
for
a
having me
wonderful
here.
conversation with you.
Thank
And
you.
I hope this conversation helps everyone who's watching. If you think there is someone who needs this information, please don't forget to share the episode, like the episode. Also, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification icon so you don't miss out on such wonderful episodes. Thank you very much. I'll see you in next episode.